Hello there. Are you
Hi,
there,
Jeff.
Vinod? How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. All right. Get my
Is,
beard
is that
out
a
here.
is that a is that a wallpaper or is your room
No. Oh
the way?
God, no. I would never show a wallpaper like this. Can I show? I don't think you can show wallpaper uh in
Maybe yes.
Hop In, which is sad because I would definitely not be showing my little hotel room where I'm in. I don't want to. Yeah, I would rather not have to show my bed. But that's I actually, I had to make the place look good. I had to make my own hotel room bed this morning and make the place look halfway decent.
Yeah. So,
And then
so
this
we just
little.
have 3 minutes to start. So do you want to
Okay.
do a check on your screen sharing?
Yep. Hold on. Let's. I'm gonna share the screen and
Yes, I see a screen.
yeah, and let's bring up our PowerPoint. Um, okay, we can see that.
Yes.
Good. And I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna probably. I have a question. I'm gonna have a question for you here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I'm gonna drag this down here, or drag this over. I want to get it so, and now. Boo. All right. Hold on. I have to do some rearranging of windows here. So I'm gonna. Bear with me. So now. Oh, darn it. No, this goes over here. And that goes over there. Good. And hold on. All right. Do you see a full screen of the slideshow? Are you there?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so you see the full screen of the slideshow now?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Great. All right. So now I'll be able to talk, and it's just the way how to doesn't.
So this is our second volunteer, Nehemai.
Okay. Hello. How are you?
Doing good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm okay. All right. I think we're cool. Great.
Yeah, I think people are joining in.
Yeah, I think we already have some 48 people, so let us
Wonderful.
get started.
Well, you want to start right away? Well, we got a minute left.
Yes.
No, let's wait that minute so that we have people who are joining on the last minute.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, so something we should do because somebody is already saying there's an echo. I have very high definition audio equipment here, and so it's picking up a lot of stuff. So when I am talking, you should mute, and when you are talking, I should mute. Okay.
Sure.
Which means I'm gonna mute right now while people come in. All right.
Yeah. Snehemai, do you hear an echo now?
Else that
I was talking on mute, but no, I didn't hear any when it was only you speaking. I'm putting myself on mute.
the chat window, and people are complaining of echo, and this was a problem. When I did a present yesterday, when because I have this super high resolution audio here, and that was picking up the speaker. That's something that Hop In doesn't do really well. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute until after.
No, Jeff, I think we figured it out. So I think when we mute each other, I think it sorts out.
Great. So I'll go ahead and mute, and we'll be cool. until you're ready to have me start talking. Okay.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So in today's session, we have Jeff Stewart, a student talking about outperforming a Scrum Master performance appraisal. So Jeff Stewart is a Scrum trainer from Scrum Inc., and he's been conducting a lot of public classes around. So over to you, Jeff. I mean, we want to do an introduction of yourself and start with the session.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you. I know you're all there on a Sunday night. A lot of you probably have better things to do on a Sunday night than to talk about stuff doing at work. So thank you all for being there. It's as a lot of you who know me know that it was probably my intention to your dear country this year. And that happened in a way I never could have imagined. I was over there working for a while and ended up being locked down in a hotel room in Calcutta for 4.5 months there. But a lot of great things came out of it. One of them was the idea for this presentation, which was actually suggested to me by one of your colleagues. It's something that would be really useful, and I hope you'll get value out of this today. It's going to be a different take than what you might think about it. Just a little bit about me. Yeah, I'm a Scrum Fellow from Scrum Inc. I'm also a Scrum Alliance Certified Enterprise Coach. I've been practicing in this field for about 14 years now, and have mainly worked around the United States up until about 2014, when I started working all over the world, and particularly spending a lot of time in India and the subcontinent, particularly in the last 3 years. I mentioned I was looking at relocating. The world dealt us something differently. This was the year that we kind of all needed to go home. I finally was able to get back to the United States in about 2 months ago. Actually, 2 months ago today. That journey I could write a book about, and probably will, all by myself. But it kind of breaks my heart that I'm not with you all there in India, and particularly in Hyderabad, which is where this is a city very near and dear to my heart. It's one of my homes away from home. And unfortunately, you're seeing instead of this lovely background of Hyderabad, you're seeing my latest little hotel room that I'm in. I can't put a glorious background out this, and I apologize for that. But next year, God willing, we'll all see each other back in India again. So, all right, outperforming your Scrum Master performance appraisal. I see we've got 113 people here. Thank you all for showing up. I know this is an interest. The topic was actually suggested to me. Remember, I come at this, even though I'm a trainer and I do public trainings, my background has all been as a practitioner and a coach. And so that's why this topic is one that I have I think I have good experience with. And I'll explain why I think that is in a minute. So, but before we get started, let me get this going on the screen here. Give me a second. And before we do anything, a lot of you might be confused by this choice of topic, because there's no escaping the fact that performance appraisals are dumb. All right. They're not useful, and you can go back years and years, and just people, great thought leaders writing in Agile, who say performance appraisals have no impact in improving the performance of everybody. In fact, they're worse. And this kind of thinking goes back ages. There's W. Edwards Deming, the great father of statistical quality control and continuous improvement, one of the great fathers of lean. And he has said, he probably said for the last 50 years of his life, that the performance appraisal nourishes short-term performance, annihilates long-term planning, builds fear, demolishes teamwork, nourishes rivalry and politics. It leaves people bitter and crushed bruised, battered, desolate, despondent, dejected, feeling inferior, some even depressed, and unfit for work for weeks after receipt of a rating, unable to comprehend why they are inferior. It's unfair as it ascribes to people in a group differences that may be caused totally by the system that they work in. Right? He said that he's one of the great management thinkers, huge contribution to our own profession. Who's probably said that for the last 50 years of his life. This is Samuel. Excuse me the coughing. I have low-level asthma. No COVID going on here. So if you hear me cough a little bit, please excuse me. My asthma is picking up in the fall weather here in the Midwest of the United States. So this is Samuel Colbert, who is a management professor at the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA. And he's a person who really studies kind of old line management thinking that is embedded in current management behavior and challenges a lot of that. And he says it's finally time to put the performance review out of its misery. This corporate sham is one of the most insidious, most damaging, yet most ubiquitous of corporate activities. Everybody does it. And almost everyone who evaluates it hates it. It's a pretentious, bogus practice that produces absolutely nothing that any thinking executive would call a corporate plus. Yet few people do anything to kill that. How could it be? In part, it's because few managers are aware that their addiction to the fear that reviews create among staff, and too many lack the confidence that they can lead without fear. Now, I'm going to turn off my screen sharing for just a minute because I want to talk to you for a second. So the topic is how to be awesome and how to have an awesome Scrum Master performance review. Mistake anything what I'm saying without saying that with the fact that performance appraisals are really dumb. And the fact that we have to go through them still to this day is ridiculous. They are an impediment to improving the performance of teams and organizations and people. So don't mistake anything I'm going to say. But one of the things I want to get at is that we've been saying that in Agile for as long as Agile existed. And as you can see, the things I've shown you, we've been saying, management theorists have been saying this for probably 50 years, and nothing is really changing. So I want to take, instead of, you saw these really, really emotional kind of vicious attacks on performance reviews that are true, but it was a way saying this screaming, we need to stop doing this. We need to stop doing this. It's time to put an end to it. And that strategy has not worked. It hasn't worked at all. And so I'm going to turn my slides back on here. And so we got this, and I'm going to share this full screen. So on my own task board, which I have running wherever I at, I always have something at the top of it that's kind of guide my activity. And there's something I've had at the top of my own task board with my own personal backlog or backlogs this year that have really tried to guide me. And it was something Swami Vivekananda said. This is a core part of his approach, is that his method was to construct, not to pull down. Right? His method is to build things. And so I want to take this as a different strategy. This is a different strategy and a different approach, is that what we're going to do is take it, performance reviews are dumb. And frankly, every second of your life worrying or even thinking about a performance review is a second of your life wasted, which is exactly why you should get so good at answering performance questions that you never even have to think about it, right? So instead of railing against performance reviews, we are going to take a different approach at getting so good in any moment at answering performance related questions like this that you never even have to think about it. And through that process, even thinking about it, the performance review becomes irrelevant in your life. It's just something that happens, and you're getting so good. You're so good at doing it. It's just an afterthought. And if you do that and you share that practice with other people, in my experience, all of a sudden the performance reviews become irrelevant, and people start seeing what a waste of time it is. Now, as you can see by the gray beard, I've been around for a long time. I have never had a bad performance review. I always had good performance reviews my whole career. I don't think for a minute, great, I got a good performance review. That is not the truth about my life, right? Performance reviews do not tell the truth. But the thing is get so good at reflecting and answering performance-related questions and in inquiries that people get that you never even have to think about it. And that's what we're going to explore today. All right. There is a prerequisite before we get on for having an amazing Scrum Master performance appraisal. And the prerequisite for having an amazing Scrum Master performance appraisal, or in any role, we're talking about Scrum Masters today, you have to be an amazing Scrum Master. All right. So I am not offering you a shortcut to having an awesome performance review. The prerequisite for having an amazing Scrum Master performance appraisal is to be an amazing Scrum Master. Don't get anything about that. Don't get anything wrong about that. Now, how do you become amazing Scrum Master? Right? You attend conferences like this. You share with your friends, right? You interact with your teams in a way that, wow, we're all looking at getting better. You have a Kaizen for yourself all the time. So this is you're even by attending this, you are laying the foundation for being an amazing Scrum Master if you go back and do something important. A lot of you, I show this picture. It's getting so I show this picture of this guy at almost every presentation I do because he said something so important. That is BKS Iyengar. Mr. Iyengar was the great modern teacher of Hatha Yoga. And he passed away about 5 years ago. He lived till 95 years old. And actually was what was really the person that helped the spread of Hatha Yoga in the West. Pure Hatha Yogi, he called himself. A really amazing teacher. And I've learned so much from that practice into not just the realm of Hatha Yoga, but also the practice of how to teach. And he said something amazing about practice and the impact it had. Change leads to disappointment if it is not sustained. And transformation is sustained change, and it is achieved through practice. We use this term transformation, right? That actually may appear on a performance appraisal. What did you do to contribute to Agile transformation this year? Transformation emerges from practice. The way to become an awesome Scrum Master isn't to read a book about it. It's not to go to get yet another certification. Even going to this conference, it's not going to help you until you engage this in practice. So, a couple other prerequisites before we get on this journey. First, do you have a backlog? All right? Do you have a backlog for your own professional development? If you do not, you're fired as a Scrum Master. All right? That is something that's absolutely necessary. You must have a backlog because you have to start getting, if you want to be awesome as a Scrum Master and get these awesome reviews, you have to get this into your DNA. And the first step is that can anybody walk in and see your backlog? Now, I mentioned, excuse me, I was during the strict lockdown, and in fact, I ended up being locked from late February until late July in a hotel room in Calcutta. And one of the blessings of being locked down there in that particular room like that, I do not recommend that anybody spend 4.5 months in a hotel room. It's not good for your health. But one thing I was able to do, I knew I was going to be locked down there for a long time. And I said, all right, if I'm going to be locked up in this hotel room, let's get the most out of this time. And so there you see, luckily in this room, I had a lot of windows and mirrors and great open flat spaces. So I had multiple backlogs and story maps on things I was creating. There's my main backlog you see in front of me, but then I had a reading backlog, a writing backlog, an exercise backlog, all things I was focused as a way to feed into this main backlog that I have here. So get in the habit. If you do not have a backlog that anybody, your family or your colleagues could see it in the moment, you must have a backlog, right? If you are going to live a life as a Scrum Master, you have to have a backlog. Along with that is a prerequisite. I would say, get in the practice of having a backlog, but then step back and ask yourself, why are you doing this crazy role as a Scrum Master? And doing it for a job is insufficient. It is not enough to just have a job as a career if you want to be a great Scrum Master. The things that is going to really propel you into greatness is to know why you're doing it. Have it be really clear why you're doing this. So I'm going to turn the camera off for just a second because I want to talk to you straight about this. So this is so critically important because it's not just, this is the thing that will, we talked about transformation emerging from practice, but your practice has to have a measurable goal. I actually use, it's actually a much better term than the English word practice is the term from Sanskrit that appears in so many languages in the subcontinent is sadhana. And sadhana is practice that is leading up toward a goal. Okay, it could be a spiritual practice, it could be a musical practice, but the idea is that you are kind of cleaning the window and polishing the mirror into yourself to improve your self practice. Sadhana is like that. It's practice in sort of a goal, critically important. So why am I doing this actually started emerging before I took up Agile 14 years ago. I like to think that I was drawn into Agile based out of this promise I had. And the promise I had made to what I wanted to dedicate my life to was helping people find their own voice and as a member of a free society, with the idea that as people found their own voice, meaning they always bring their best game, their best inner spark to whatever they're working on, being actually through doing that, it's actually going to bring healing and value and great stuff to the whole planet. So that was why I'm doing this. I am doing this so anybody on earth can bring their best game, their greatest gifts to whatever they're working on with other people. And so that's why I'm in this. So that's my promise I put in this thing, but get very clear, why are you doing this as a Scrum Master? Now we're maybe you'll be wondering, well, I thought we were talking about performance reviews, but what I'm talking about are the foundational elements, as you can see as we go along this, how this leads to ultimately having awesome performance as a Scrum Master. All right, let's turn the slides back on here.
Would like you to switch to a presentation mode when you're sharing your slides. Maybe they're not able to read it.
Sorry, I'm not. I don't even know how to do that and hop in.
No, you just need to, when you open your slides,
right?
Just go to presentation mode. Press F5 and it goes.
I have been doing that. So right now, hold on. Gotta find where this. So right now I am in presentation mode right now.
But we are seeing the screen that you would be seeing it.
I don't know what to do here because I was just in presentation mode. This
Okay,
is the thing with Hopin. Sorry, I don't. If you want to tell me what I need to click, I clicked F5. I went into presentation mode, and you're seeing the same thing. So if you want to tell me what else to click, otherwise I want to keep going on.
Do you have another display? You would have two displays. One is the presentation.
I have two displays, but we tried to go through this before. All right, I will try this, folks, but we'll see what happens. No, actually, no. I'm sorry. I want to keep going on. This is a thing with Hopin. All right, and there just needed to be better explanation of this. We tried swapping screens before the session. It didn't work, right? So I'm sorry, but I just want to keep going on.
Sure.
Yeah, people are saying slideshow and stuff like that, swap the displays. It's all been done. And so we're just going to keep going on, and I'll expand this as much as I can. I don't know what you're seeing. Because right now I am in presentation mode. All right. So the thing with why you're doing this in the backlog is getting you to the point where you can actually be the amazing Scrum Master and make others amazing as well. So we're kind of leading up to the point where performance reviews become irrelevant because you are always being that person. You're right. And the first requirement for doing this is talking to people. You actually have to talk to people and find out what the measurable result is for their life, what performance looks like to them and for other people. What's this look? Wow, what does being an amazing Scrum Master look like for you? And here's a question on how to frame this. I always ask, if I'm going into a new organization as a Scrum Master or in any role, if everything went fabulous, what would it look like 6 months from now? And what would it look like a year from now? So that is, that's really a foundational question, because it also gets people so they're thinking about what it actually looks like when amazing performance happens. If everything went fabulous, what would it look like 6 months from now? If everything fabulous, what would it look like a year from now? What would we have done, and what would we have grown into? Ask this of as many people as you can. Don't just ask this of your boss. Don't ask it of the HR person who might be administering it, right? Ask it of everybody, because that's the thing. That's how you inspire others into higher performance too, because you are setting up a measurable vision. You are setting up a measurable mission. Wow. If that's what it looks like, what's our backlog look like? What's your personal backlog look like to getting to that point 6 months or a year from now? So you're projecting into the future, and you're creating a backlog and a vision to work towards that future. As everything agile, that can change and shift over time, but this is a practice to get into that is going to lead you to be able to actually do an amazing performance review on demand. So once we start doing this, okay, once you start having these conversations about what it had fabulous and creating a backlog around this, then the pathway to becoming a performance review, not just taking a performance review, but you are the performance review, is to become a master storyteller about your own journey. That means you see things that people have said, wow, if it looks fabulous, we're working, you have a backlog. Well, just achieving the backlog is not good enough. If you want to be a continuous amazing performance review, you have to master telling great stories about it. What successes, what difficulties have you had in that journey? Practice that on people in your life. Don't just practice it maybe on your boss or your teammates. Practice it on your family. Practice it on your grandmother. practice it on the guy that if you walk down the street and go to the chai stand every morning, maybe practice it on him, right? Get so you are fluent at in the moment telling a story about something that went well and something that didn't go well inside. Now, I have a dirty trick I want to share with you. When I am preparing and I'm trying to get good at conversations with this, I practice on my cat. All right? Because when you practice on your cat, that reaction from that cat you see right there is the reaction that all cats will give you. And I find this very useful because the cat will never be impressed by anything you say, which is why I find them wonderful to practice with. If I'm telling stories about what it's like being a Scrum Master, right, or any kind of conversation like this, practice on your cat if you have a cat, or practice. Cats are particularly good because cats are never impressed by anything you say. But practice by the people or the animals in your life, right, to do this. Now I'm gonna turn the share off for a minute because I want to give you a couple examples of how to tell stories like this. Give me a second. We're gonna turn that slides off. Turn the slides off, and there you're seeing me again. All right. So, somebody said cats are never impressed, which is why you want to practice on a cat, because they're the toughest audience you're probably ever going to have is a cat. So, and believe it or not, I have done this. If I'm telling a really challenging story, you practice on the cat. So, I wanna give you a couple examples from my journey as a Scrum Master. And they start out with actually things I learned as a Scrum Master, how I actually, the journey to become a Scrum Master. So I came into this work from being a business analyst and a UX expert, and I was actually at a point working as a project manager. During the .com era, that made me never want to be a project manager again ever in my life. So I actually worked as a senior manager in a smaller company where I was always the one, and always the one who would jump out of bed in the middle of the night and fix problems. So then I got into agile work. Mainly we're doing business analyst work in the beginning, and then becoming a Scrum Master. And there were two kind of pivotal moments that happened when I was becoming a Scrum Master. One of them is figuring out what the team needed. And I was going in, we were meeting with a new client for the first time. And I had my project manager had things stuck in my head. And I did what project managers say, and saying, I'll be the middle person. I'll be your point of contact for when you want to communicate with a team. And I could almost feel the eyeballs from my team members burning into the back of my head when I was doing that. Because they were like, and afterwards they were like, no, you are not the point of contact. The customer is talking to us, and we need you to help us do this, right? So that sounds very simple, but it was one of the pivotal moments in my journey as a Scrum Master to do that. There's a simple little story of how I said something in front of the team. My own team came and gave feedback to me, and to develop myself as a Scrum Master. Same thing when I was as a Scrum Master. Often I would do business analysis work, and we were meeting a client, and they needed some task flows, right? And the team said, can you help us do this thing? We're not very good at this. Can you help us kind of visualize this task flow for this process, the customer process we're going through? And so I pulled up Visio, and it was making all these beautiful looking charts. And then the senior developer on the team walked up behind me, and he's looking at what I'm doing on my screen. He says, oh, I get it. You can stop now. Okay. And from that, I learned, if I was being a BA, saying, no, I can't stop. It's not all here. I have to document everything. From in that moment, what I learned as a Scrum Master was that the team needed just enough information that they could get to work. If I had created more information, that would have been a waste of my time, really a waste of my time, because they weren't going to use it, and wasted the team's time on by giving them way more information than they needed. So those are two quick stories. Boom, I could tell like stories like that. Get used to look, go back and look. Wow, if we're great 6 months from now, what does it look like? That gives you measurable results you can do. Work towards those and tell stories, how you reach that journey and how you develop yourself in a Scrum Master in service of that backlog to help the organization become awesome in 6 months or a year. So that's the fundamental, that's the cycle. And as I turn the slides back on here and we see Mr. Kitty Cat, all right, that, we went back and say, what did we need? What was needed to go fabulous? Tell a story about it. That is the cycle. That's the rhythm you get into. You go to this kind of rhythm. What do you need to be fabulous? It creates a backlog. Tell the stories about getting through that backlog. That is what you master. So we go back and look at Mr. Iyengar. Getting good at that kind of approach to a performance review, you can render that in the moment. Always be able to tell a story so that when you actually get into your performance review, any question that gets thrown at you becomes easy. Any evaluation, any metric they do, it becomes easy. This is how I've always been able to approach performance reviews well. If, again, what I said in the beginning, every moment, every second you spend in your life thinking about a performance review is a second wasted. These things just, and the way to do this is get good at telling stories like this. This is not just something you do once a year. It's a muscle you build up. So you can render that kind of, you are the person who's actually being the performance, not passing a performance review. And those things start to, in my life, performance reviews have become irrelevant over time. Mr. Iyengar also had said something, this is the practice of yoga, that extension equals space. Space equals freedom. Freedom equals precision. Precision is truth, and truth is God. So what this is saying is that this is another way of looking at this transformation journey. It comes through practice. Through practice, extension equals space, meaning you start practicing this, telling stories, it starts creating space for being able to do that. You get great freedom from that. From that kind of, what talking with precision is that you can answer almost any question if you practicing this way. Any question related to your own journey, your team's journey, you can start answering. And that gets at the truth of the matter faster than any performance review. So the performance review almost becomes irrelevant. All right. So generating stories in the moment about your journey makes you a walking, talking, amazing performance appraisal. You need to develop your muscles so you can do this in the moment. At any moment, you can generate a good story about some particular thing, no matter what anybody asks you. So this is part of the muscle you build up as a great Scrum Master. And in the process of that, the actual performance appraisal becomes an afterthought. It's just something interesting you have to deal with, maybe for a half an hour every 6 months or a year. All right. So that, in a nutshell, that is, in my experience, the formula for being awesome at a performance review, is not being able to, not obsessing about doing the performance review, but being able to generate it any second. Anybody asks you, right? All right. If your boss called you in tomorrow morning, Monday morning, and said, oh, wow, tell me what you've been doing to help the team. Generate those stories, right? What are you doing to help the agile transformation? Generate those stories right there. Get good at this. This is why I say practice is important. This is one of the things that I'm kind of sad. I actually was setting up a workshop around this. So if we were together in Hyderabad, we would start practicing this stuff right away. We couldn't do that today because of what happened in the world. So I hope when I'm back in India, I can have a session somewhere and we can start practicing this stuff together. And don't forget to practice on your cat if you can have one, if you have one. All right. I just had a couple more slides. But let me ask, are there any questions right now? Any questions? I've been watching the chat window on and off. Can any of my moderators prioritize some questions? Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing my moderators. Are you guys there? All right.
Yeah.
There you are, Vina. Can you? Are there any questions you saw that you can prioritize? Because I have been watching the chat window really close.
Nothing. I mean, we're going to start asking them posting questions, and I will source that for you.
Gagan wants to know what strategies you recommend for storytelling.
A strategy, this is the thing. Pick something, right? It's interesting. All right, so you can, if you want to start simple, all right, take a burn down chart. Look at a burn down chart of the last few sprints. Take one of them and tell me the story of what happened during that sprint. If you want to, so there's not a strategy. Don't look for a formula to do a story. There's no silver bullet story template to follow. These have to emerge from you as a person, right? Don't follow a template, right? Don't make up, because then you're going to start sounding like a commercial and not a person. You'll start sounding like a TV commercial, right? So pick a burn down chart and tell me a story of what happened during that sprint, right? I'm going to look, wow, what happened here? It looks like maybe there was an impediment. Tell me the story of how you cleared that impediment. Right, so that's a good way to start. You go back a few sprints, look at the history of the sprint, maybe look at the flow of the task board, right? At any moment, there's another good approach. Look at your task board for your team. Tell me the story of what's going on right now and how you are serving this team the best, just based on your task board. Right? That's a good, so don't look at it as a strategy or a template. These have to come from you as a human being. Individuals' interactions over processes and tools. Do not look for a storytelling process. Start telling, because you are the process, right? Anything else?
Yeah, there's a second question from Hina. What if your managers are also like cats, never impressed?
Get used to it. This is exactly why you practice on a cat, right? Look, I always said, I've never had a bad performance review. I've always done awesome in my life, and never for a moment do I treat those like they're true. All right? It's just a performance review. It actually is probably more inaccurate how it comes out, but it's not true. So it's why this is why you practice on a cat, because don't expect, if you're telling a story, don't expect anybody, don't be attached to anybody being impressed. Performance reviews are dumb. Right? They're dumb. So if your boss doesn't react to it, that means nothing about you. So you're generating the stories, right? That could be a good sign that you're so awesome that your boss is getting bored with your awesome performance and wants to be impressed by something. So you have to dig deeper and tell better stories. All right.
The next question is from Keshav. What should you do when the Scrum Master tries to behave as a true project manager?
Tell him to knock it off. So it's a thing. But this is the thing. You can tell stories of, wow. So first of all, if they're behaving like a traditional project manager, chances are they're causing impediments for the team. They're directing, the traditional way, they're directing attention away from creating awesome value to reporting statuses and stuff like that, or they're ordering you around. So first of all, raise it as an impediment and then tell a story. Wow, here's what you did and here was the impact on us, right? Not, I said, tell them to stop doing this, but you have to convince them. You have to influence them that, wow, this is the impact of what happened when you started being a project manager. I'll tell you, one of the best agile executives I ever worked with was in India, vice president in charge of 3,000 person unit. And he would have people tell him stories about what it did. And he would flat out look at them and say, you're being a project manager right now. I need you to be a scrum master. Right? So mirror back that behavior. Get good at observing and telling stories about that. Yeah, somebody asked, how important are elevator pitches in the entire process? A different way of telling a story is an elevator pitch, right? Be careful about the elevator pitch template, because then you start talking like a commercial, right? Something like that. This is very personal, but once you start telling your stories, I've been around people that I say, tell your story, and that lasts for 5 minutes. I said, all right, let's do the same story again and tell it to me in 2 minutes. Right? Let's do the same story again and tell it to me in 1 minute and get that down. So that's part of the practice. If you find yourself going on, I fall into that a lot, right? And I'm seeing my colleagues in my hand going, stop, you need to quit now, move on. I'm horrible at overselling my point when I'm telling a story. I often don't have a good sense of when I've convinced everybody and I can move on. All right. And that takes practice. In some town like me, I'll probably practice it my whole life. Okay. All right. How are we doing with questions?
Yeah, one question, Jeff.
Yeah.
How do you convince a technical lead in an organization to let go of a Scrum Master who was earlier reporting to him to report to an Agile working group within the organization?
I'm not quite following that. So what is it you're trying to influence the technical lead to actually do?
So the technical lead wants a Scrum Master to report to him, but the direction from the leadership wants the Scrum Master to report to the Agile working group who are set up for that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's going to have to live with it, right? If that's what the organization wants, and and the one thing I'm like, so now I'm going to pry into, I'm going to ask him to tell me some stories, because he has a feeling that he has to be the dude in charge. He has to be the big boss, right? And I'm going to ask him, well, what, 6 months from now, what's it going to look like? This is kind of turning that conversation around. 6 months, if you're not the big boss, 6 months, what's it going to look like? All right. And you say, well, the architecture will go down and everything slow down. We'll have all kinds of bugs. He's articulating a backlog, right? So this is the thing. When you ask that question, what's it going to look like 6 months from now? You could ask him in a positive way. If everything went awesome, what would it look like 6 months from now? That's going to really put him thinking, because his job is to make everything awesome. It's clear. Look, if the organization said he's not going to be the big boss, he's not going to be the big boss unless he changes their mind, which he's probably not going to do. All right. So now you're looking underneath. What does this guy want to be awesome? Right. Being the big boss is one way of doing it, but it's kind of a traditional top-down command and control, fear-based way of doing it. How can I help this guy be a hero without being the big boss? Right. Well, what would it look like 6 months from now? You're not going to be the big boss of all these people. What's it going to look like 6 months from now if everything is awesome? Start building a backlog on that and helping that guy, first of all, do that and then tell stories about it. And then 6 months from now, he looks better than the days when he was the big boss. Right? Then you are helping him be an awesome performer without being the big boss, and probably a better one. Okay. Anything else? I had a couple more slides I want to share right before we're done. Is that all the questions?
Any more questions?
Okay. In that case, and I think we're right up around our time, our 45-minute time. And I'll give you time to, this time, give you a little time to get to your next session. But I just want to share a couple more slides here. And take a minute of your time to share with you on October 2nd. I am publishing a book, and it's called An Agilist in India, A Journey Through Kudai Raj. Publishing on October 2nd. It's my offering for why I think that India and the subcontinent are the great fertile grounds for Agile on Earth, and that everything, the healing and value and everything we have to go to do to improve the state of the world that we've experienced in 2020, I believe has to emerge from that area of the world. So it is not I will tell you, it is not a traditional business-oriented Agile book right now, as you can tell from the picture of Kanya Kumari right there. And it's learning what that, if you don't know what Kudai Raj, it was actually a vision that Gandhi had for the whole world. So if you visit the website agilistinindia.com or look at Facebook and Agilist in India, it is not a free book, but I guarantee, without revealing, I guarantee that you will be able to afford it. All right. All right. Cool. So that's all I had for today. So please check that out. I would be honored if you would check the book out. Like I said, I guarantee you will be able to afford it. And let's turn those slides off. And unless there's any other questions. Oops, I forgot to share that screen. I'm sorry. People are saying I didn't see the screen. Now we will. So hopefully. Are people seeing the screen now? Good. So there's the picture of Kanya Kumari. There's where you can find information, sign up for the mailing list about on the book, or go to Facebook where I'm posting excerpts every once in a while. And I would be very honored if you would check that out. And when it comes October 2nd, if you would check out the book. Alrighty, good. Now we are done, unless there's any other quick questions. Anything else? Oh, you're not, you're muted. So, but I think we're all done.
Absolutely, Jay.
Coolness.
Absolutely, Jay.
Great.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay.
I think I'm
Again,
echoing,
it kind
so
of
I will
broke my
put
heart.
myself on mute. So I will put myself on mute.
Okay. All right. Great. So again, it breaks my heart that I couldn't be there with you all there this year. I know we wanted I'm sure all of us wanted to be together in Hyderabad. That's not what life dealt us this year, but even that, become good at telling the stories of what you did this year, because that will feed into the great stories you can tell on your future. And right in a year, hopefully a year from now, we can all be together and share those stories together and see how we performed awesomely during this very unique time on Earth. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Fabulous session.
Fabulous session.
Thanks. All right. Have a good evening wherever you are. It's still early. It's still not 9:30 in the morning here where I'm at. So I'm going to go off and probably take a little nap and then have a great rest of the day. Okay. Thank you so much.